Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. This video is for part 4 of the TLC Blanket, learning to crochet step by step. In part 4 you're going to be learning to work squares. Everybody who crochets learns squares at a certain point, and it's really vital that you know how to work them. We'll be making the most classic of all squares, the so-called granny square. That's this square here. This uses the same stitches you learned last week, the granny stitch, but this time you're not working rows, you're working in the round to make a square. So part 4 is all about making squares, and I'll show you exactly step by step how to do that. The yarn I'm using is still from my kit, Scheepjes Chunky Monkey yarn, and this week I'm using a 5mm hook. I'll take you step by step through every part that goes into making this square. I hope it's a useful video for you. Thank you for watching. Round 1 of the square. I'm going to use your 5mm hook, and I have color B. Start with a slip knot. We also made this in part 1, right at the beginning. And put the slip knots on your hook. Oh, the camera needs to focus, there we go. And now we're ready to start. I'm going to start with a chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 chains. Now we're going to come back to the very first chain and make a slip stitch in that first chain. Now to make a slip stitch, so in this position, insert your hook, pick up your yarn and pull it immediately through your working loop, so without a yarn over or anything. And if you pull too fast, it'll pop off your hook, so then just pick it back up. Now what you've made is a little circle. And if you open this up, you see right here in the middle, there, that little hole, that's the hole that you're going to be working in. Not this one, because this is where you made the slip stitch join in. So really this little hole, that's where you're working in. I'm going to start by working 3 double crochets. Now our first double crochet is going to be a chain 3. It's 1, 2, 3. So this is a double crochet, an equivalent thereof. Now the next double crochet, we're going to work in that little hole there. So I'm going to yarn over, insert into that little gap, pick up your yarn, and then complete the double crochet as normal. And you might want to move up your stitches, because we're going to be working quite a few stitches into this little hole here. And once you've made the first one, the rest are going to be easier, because you're going to be able to see that little gap easier. So yarn over, because I need a second one in there as well, because I want 3. There you go. So now you have 3 double crochets, and this is again a granny group, exactly like we did last week in part 3. Chain 2. 1, 2. This chain 2 is going to be a corner. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Now we're going to work in that same gap 3 more double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3. And now if you look, you can nicely see this is an edge, this is a corner, and that is an edge. Chain 2, because we want another corner, because we're going to make a square, so you want 4 corners at the end. Yarn over. It's 1, and again 3 double crochets. 2, 3 double crochets in that gap. So you see now you have 3 edges. You see I'm just pulling my stitches back so you have more room in that little hole. Then chain 2. And now I'm going to make my 4th edge. So I'm going to make 3 more double crochets. Just need a bit more yarn. So 1, 2, 3. So now you have 4 edges and 3 corners. Chain 2, this is your last corner. And now you're going to work a slip stitch here at the top of the chain 3. So you see there's the top, there you're going to work a slip stitch, and that's actually going to join the beginning to the end. So in the top of the chain 3, insert your hook. Then you see how I'm pulling my working loop and the loop that second loop, I'm pulling them together or close to each other, and then work a slip stitch. So there we go. And then that is your first round of your square. Round 2 of the square, we're going to move 3 positions to the chain 2 corner space. We're currently here in the first double crochet, that's the chain 3, so we're going to move, and we're going to do that with slip stitches. So I'm going to go to the next stitch, this one, and make a slip stitch. Then come to the next stitch, make a slip stitch, and then come to the chain 2 space and make a slip stitch. So now I've moved 3 positions. Now we're ready to start the actual stitches. Again, chain 3. This is our first double crochet. And in the corner space, work 2 more doubles. 1 and 2. So now you've worked 3 double crochets. I'm going to move it up a bit because you need to get a few more stitches in there. Chain 2. This is your new corner. You're going to make a new corner. And then in the same space work 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3. You can see how this is your new corner. Chain 1. This is to bridge the gap over this granny group here, and then come to the next chain 2 space. And in here we're going to work the same as here. So 3 double crochets. This 1, 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, then move those stitches up a bit, and in that same space now work 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and this is number 3. Now you can see you have 2 corners there and a chain 1 space here in the middle. I'm going to repeat this again on this edge and on this edge, and then a chain 1, and then we finish. I'll show you the full round, but in essence it's a repetition of what we've already done. So chain 1, then in the chain 2 space work 3 doubles. That's 1, 2. My yarn is almost finished, the first ball. Well, not almost. I'll get the square out. Chain 2, then 3 more doubles. But because it's running towards the end, it's not cooperating as much. So that's the third corner. Then again, chain 1, skipping the stitches, come to the last chain 2 space, and work again 3 doubles. 2 and 3, chain 2, and I split that last one, chain 2, and then 3 more doubles, your last 3 doubles in the chain 2 space here. It's 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, remember this chain 1, and now we're again going to close on the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch. So here at the top, insert your hook and close with a slip stitch. Now you have 2 rounds of your square already, and it's really starting to look like a square. Round 3 of the square is very similar, and it's in the way it begins to round 2. We're again going to move with slip stitches to the chain space. So that's 1, 2, and then this is the third one. 3 slip stitches. And now we're going to start in the same way as we did on round 2. So chain 3, and then in the space work 2 more doubles, because that chain 3 counts as your first doubles. 1, 2 more doubles. Just move everything up a bit, followed by chain 2, 2, and then 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And that's your new corner. Chain 1, because we again want to skip this granny group here. Chain 1. And now in this space here, work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3 double crochets in that space. Chain 1. Skipping this group here, come to your corner, your next corner. And there again 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets. You're always going to work the same stitches in the corner. So I'm going to go just a little faster. Chain 2 and 1, 2 chain, and then 3 doubles. 1, 2, 3 doubles. And now on this edge you're going to repeat what you've worked here. So it's again chain 1, come to the chain 1 space that's here in the middle, work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, skipping this group, come to the corner, and again 3 doubles, chain 2 and 3 doubles. 1, 2, 3. So now you've worked 2 full edges of the square. Going to work the 3rd edge and the 4th edge. I'll show this to you again, and the next round I'll be a bit shorter because it's going to be the same idea. You'll understand what I mean. So again, chain 1, come to the space here in the middle, work 3 doubles in there, and this is a granny's group in there, chain 1, and then come to the corner. It's 1, 2, 3, chain. I'm really splitting my yarn today, I don't know why. 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3 doubles. So that's the 4th corner. Now I have only the last edge here left. So chain 1, skipping these stitches, come here to the middle, work 3 double crochets in there. So 1, 1, 2, 3. Now remember this last chain 1, remember that stitch, and then come to the top of the chain 3 and close with a slip stitch. And now you have 3 rounds worked, only 1 round left. Round 4, last round of the square. going to start in the same idea. 3 slip stitches till the chain 2 corner space. Now we're ready to work our first corner. So there's going to be 3 doubles, chain 2 and 3 doubles. So that's the same corner, chain 2, and let me just move this up, so you just make a bit of room there. They really do fit, just squish them in. 1, 2, 3. So that's your new corner, 3 doubles, chain 2, 3 doubles. Now on the edge, going to work a chain 1 above every granny group, and in the gaps going to work 3 doubles. That's what you're going to do. And then when you get to the corner, you work again 3 doubles, chain 2, 3 doubles. And this stitch pattern you can repeat endlessly until you're happy with the size of your square. Now we're only going to work 4 rounds, but as such you could make these squares larger or smaller if you're doing other projects. And this pattern is really a classic granny square pattern. So in the gap, now first a chain 1, you see how easy it is to forget. Chain 1, then in the gap 3 doubles, 1, 2, 3 doubles, chain 1, come to the next gap, 3 doubles, so 1, 2, 3 doubles, chain 1, come to the chain 2 space, 3 doubles, chain 2 and 3 doubles. Okay, so you work a chain 2 as a corner, and the chain 1s are only on the edges to bridge the granny groups. And 1, 2, 3. And you can see how this corner is the same as that corner. So on your next 3 edges, I'm not going to make a jump in the video. You're going to repeat exactly the same. Chain 1, granny group, chain 1, a granny group, chain 1, a granny corner. Go all the way around, and then I'll see you here when you've worked your last granny group, because you're going to close in a different way. I want to teach you an invisible join. So at first, go all the way around. Almost all the way around. I just worked the last granny group. Now I need to do a chain 1 and then close on the first stitch. But I'm going to close with an invisible join, and the reason for that is because we're going to be joining these squares to our work next week, and it's actually more pretty if we use an invisible join instead of a slip stitch join. But first the chain 1, because this stitch we still need to make. And now you can cut your yarn. Cut your yarn and open up the loop. Now to make an invisible join, you need your needle, thread the yarn on your needle. Some people do this with a hook, but I still do it with a needle because I just have more control over what I'm doing. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a fake stitch over the starting stitch. Now in this case it's the chain 3. So with your needle, go to the stitch after the starting stitch. So here this is a full double crochet, is that stitch, and insert your needle through that stitch. So you come to the second stitch and pull the loop through and pull these 2 together. And this little loop here is actually the first, this little loop is actually the first half of a new V stitch that you're going to create. You see there's the V of the stitch, and this is actually that first leg, so this is the same as that leg. Now come back to the last stitch worked, and in this case it's a chain stitch. So insert your needle into the chain stitch and pull it out at the back. And now you've got a very, in this case still a very large stitch, but this is your invisible join. Now pull your loop until the stitch is the same size as the other stitches. So I'm just going to pull this a little bit more. There we go. And now if you look at this from the top, you can't even see where that join is. And that's exactly what the point is of an invisible join. You can't see where the join is. If you look very closely, you see here is the chain 3, that starting chain 3, and there is the invisible join. So this completes the square. I'd still like to look at working away both this yarn tail and the one here right at the beginning. So let's just take a moment to look at yarn tails. Yarn tails. You'll have two yarn tails. You'll have one at the beginning, this one right at the center of the square, and you'll have one here from the invisible join. Now, let's just first look at the invisible join because I've still got the yarn on my needle. Now what I like to do is I like to come back. So this is the chain 1, so it's currently in that chain 1. So what I like to do is I like to come back in the opposite, so actually go forward, so your working direction. So go forward, and now I'm just going to push the yarn down to the bottom of the granny corner. And what's important now is that you don't pull this yarn too tight, because that's going to affect your invisible join. So I'm just going to slowly pull this until it's flat, but it does not affect the size of my invisible join. See, you can't see which one it is, but I know it's this one because that's on top of the chain 3. But if you look at it like this, you can't tell, and that's exactly the point. And now I'm here at the bottom of this granny corner, so I'm going to work away my yarn tails here. So I'm going to work away by going back and forth 1 or 2 times, as I always do. Really work away that yarn tail. I'm just going to do once more, basically always because I'm paranoid and I don't want things coming undone. Oh dear, I think I split my yarn. Okay, so what I'm going to do, no stress if this happens, because now my needle is actually stuck. Oh, there it goes, otherwise I would have just cut it off. Yeah, okay, it's still okay. Otherwise, what I would have done if this was really stuck and I couldn't get the needle out, is I would have cut it there and then thread that through again. So I'm just going to pull this closed. There we go. And now you can cut your yarn. So that's the outer edge, the outer yarn tail. You still got one here in the middle. So again, at the back of your work, thread the needle on. Now what I like to do is I like to follow the stitches in the round. So here's the yarn tail. It'll stick out somewhere. And then I like to just follow the stitch direction. There. And then underneath here. And as I do so, and I pull a little bit on my yarn tail, and what happens is the center closes nice and tight. And that's exactly what you want. And now you could go back 1 or 2 stitches and just do that again. And then go forward once more. And then this really is not going to come undone, trust me. And then cut your yarn. Then that completes your first square, but you need to do a few more. Let's just look at all the other squares as well. You've now worked one square, it's this square, but you need to work 9 more. You work this one in color B, you need to work a second square, also in color B, and then you need to work 2 squares each in colors C, D, E, and F. So you're going to have, so you're going to have 10 squares in total, in every color except for your main color. So in colors B, C, D, E, and F, you're going to work 2 squares each in each of those colors, 10 squares in total. And then you're all finished for this week. Let's just have a look at how large our squares exactly are. If we look at size, this is your square right now. If you measure it from the center line here to the center line there, it should be roughly 12.5 centimeters. 12.5 centimeters is what I have. And your square should also be about the same size. That's also another thing that you're going for. So try to keep your tension steady and even, and that all your squares are the same size and that they're roughly 12.5 centimeters. 12.5 times 10 is 125, which is the length of your blanket. So if your blanket is longer because your gauge is different, for example 130 centimeters, then if this square is 13 centimeters, that's also fine. You want each square to be 1/10 of the length of your blanket. That's in essence where you're going for. So for me, this is 12.5 centimeters. Well, that brings us to the end of this instruction video. I hope to see you again next week when we'll join all these squares together and join them to our fabric. Hope to see you then.